Hello everybody. Welcome to Creating the Basic Adaptable Game Engine Library, Part 15, Introduction to JavaFX. Our ultimate goal in this series of videos is to create, a video game, and that's going to be displayed in a window, and it's going to be a graphics-based video game. So, in order to draw some graphics, in order to test the sprite class that we've started, we have to learn how to create windows and how to draw objects in the windows. And so we'll start that in this video. The first way that Java allowed people to create windows or windowed applications was with the AWT framework. After that, Java provided something called the Swing framework. And most recently, Java has introduced something called the JavaFX framework, which has been around for many years now. It's a stable and robust system. And so in this video, our very first goal is just going to be a hello world style program. We'd like to get a window up and running that maybe has a little bit of text in it. And then in future videos, we'll talk about game loops and animating objects and graphics. But this video, let's just get that window up and running. So for that purpose, we need to know about 5 different JavaFX classes and how they all work together. The main class is called the application class. All of our games, all of our windowed programs will extend the application class, sometimes called the entry point for JavaFX applications. Once you launch an application, it's going to create a window and start a thread where all the windowing processes run. We'll get more into that in a bit. Every application creates a stage. Think of that as the top level container. It's like the window in which all your content will be hosted. And you can change the different parts of the stage. For instance, the title bar. You can make it resizable. The main part of your content, though, will be contained within a scene. So the stage hosts a scene. It's kind of like a metaphor from theater. The scene contains the content of your application. And that content is arranged in something called a scene graph, which is kind of like a tree data structure. You can attach an object, and to each object you can attach a series of child objects. So the scene arranges our window contents in a tree-like structure, and when we create a scene, we need to say what the root node is going to be. A node is like a superclass in JavaFX. It refers to the different elements of the scene graph. All the different things you might want to put in your window are going to be extending the node class, whether that's labels or text areas, or in our case, canvases eventually. We also need some kind of a basic layout manager. In this case, we're going to use something called a pane. You can think of that as maybe a window pane. It's one of the simplest things you can use for a node. A pane allows you to choose an absolute position for every node which is attached to it. Right? And so for our simple application, that will be more than sufficient. There's other organizing nodes you could use, like boxes that organize their contents vertically or horizontally, or grids which arrange their contents in a grid. But for Hello World, we're just going to use a pane. All right, next, I'm going to go ahead and start up IntelliJ. Okay, so we're just going to create a test class. This won't really be part of the framework. This is just kind of an example of how things work. So we'll create a new Java class, and maybe we'll call it test JavaFX. Right? The goal is just to, again, create some kind of a test window. Okay, so every Java application that we write with JavaFX must extend the application class. Right, so we'll extend the application class. This cannot run until it's an abstract class. It can't run until we create a method called start, which is where we receive the stage or the window it creates. So let's go ahead and create a start method. Public void start. Again, we have to use this particular method because it's required by the application class. And this takes in a stage object, which I'll call main stage. In theory, you could have more than one stage. You can have multiple windows in your applications, of course, but we'll just need the one. And here I'd like to go ahead and auto import that. All right, so we're going to import that class. And when the stage, and think of the stage as kind of your window. So let's go ahead and say, maybe set the caption. So main stage dot set title. I don't know, we'll call this my JavaFX application. That should be fine. Next, this is going to seem like kind of a backwards order, but what I'd like to do is to create the pane, which is going to be the root of our scene, and then the scene will get attached to this stage. It's kind of like a hierarchy of things we need to create. But again, we can't attach a scene to the root, or sorry, we can't create a scene until we have a root object. So I'm going to go ahead and create a pane, which is going to serve as the root node of our scene. And let's see, now I'm going to create the scene itself. I'll just call this main scene. This will be a new scene. And it requires a few different parameters. It's going to require knowledge of what the root node is, right? What we're going to use to organize our contents of the scene. And we can also say how large we want the window to be. So I can create maybe an 800 by 600 window. That should be fine. Oh, and I need to do a couple of imports here. So let's import scene. And let's import pane. I love these development environments. There's no way I could memorize all of these different import classes. All right, we have our pane to organize the contents. We've got our scene. The next thing I'd like to do is set the scene. Right, so the main stage, the window, hosts a scene. So we set the scene to be the main scene. And I'd like to put something on the scene. And so since this is Hello World, I'm going to create something called a label. I need to import that. Let's see, and I want to definitely import that from the JavaFX package. So let's see. Come on, auto import. So it's not from Java AWT, it's from JavaFX scene control. There's my label import. All right, so we'll just create a new label. I'll call it message. A new label that literally says Hello World. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and string everything together. All right, so there's a couple of different parts here. So I need to go into my root object. And the way a tree is organized, you have nodes, and attached to those nodes, you can attach a bunch of different child nodes. And label is one instance of a node object. So I'm going to get the list of children, and then I want to add that label to it. Now, by default, this is going to show up in the top left corner. I might want to set coordinates for it. So maybe I'll say message, set the layout X to be somewhere in the middle-ish. So since that's 800 by 600, maybe I'll say 400. And message set layout Y to be 300. Excellent. And these are all the different parts we're going to need working together to create a very simple application. Now, the last thing we need is some kind of a driver method. Actually, no, there's one more thing. I always seem to forget this. Right? Before, I try to remember with a theater analogy, all this speaking of stages and scenes. The scene cannot go on until you raise the curtain. In this case, the analogy is you have to show the window, you have to show the stage. All of this is happening in memory, but the main stage isn't loaded onto the window until you say main stage.show. All right, now that is everything we're going to need. And this will construct a window for us. Now, in order to run an application, we need to set up a driver method, kind of like a public static void main. Let's go ahead and do that now. After the start method, let's say public static void main string bracket args. All right, so what I'd like to do is launch the application. And I'll put this in a try catch block. So we're going to try to launch. Right, we're extending the application class. Application defines the launch method for us. So we'll launch, passing along any arguments. We'll catch any exceptions. In which case, we'll do a print stack trace. Then finally, when we're done, let's do a system exit. And it's really important to do this. I really want to, clean up everything which has been done behind the scenes by creating this application. So there we have it. There's a public static void main. Let's go ahead and try giving this a run. So I'm going to run test JavaFX. If all goes according to plan. Hey, there we go. It's not a very exciting window. And in fact, the font's really small, so you might have to zoom in or look really close. But I've got a window which is 800 by 600 pixels. I've set the title as desired, and there's my little hello world message. And that's how you create a window with JavaFX. Now, again, we're going to be working on graphics-based games in this video series. So in the next video, we'll introduce another type of node, a class called Canvas, which we can use for rendering graphics. But for now, this is a fantastic start. We'll stop here. I'll upload some code to GitHub for you, and thanks for watching.